Back with you tonight, you're in Focus. Well, let's take it out to our broad conversation and our focus for the day, which is, of course, workers' issues. And President Cyril Ramaphosa was speaking earlier on, making promises to workers that his party will continue to fight for their rights. He made the comments during the Workers' Day rally at the Athlone Stadium in Cape Town today. Ramaphosa praised workers for fighting for a decent living wage. But we want to ask the question tonight, have labor movement been effective in exerting their influence within the policy-making environment and still being able to maintain their autonomy? We've got 3 unions that are not affiliated to any party as far as I know at this particular point. They are non-aligned. We want to hear how effective they have been in that particular space. We're speaking to Amcu President Joseph Mathunjwa, Sapu spokesperson Lesiba Thobakgale, and Fedusa's General Secretary Ashley Benjamin. Good to have you all, and thank you very much for coming on this evening and being part of this panel conversation. Dr. Mathunjwa, let me begin with you, because I'm sure you would have the experience of all the various phases of the political relationship between trade unions and the actions of trade unions and its impact on the national liberation. Phase 1 would have been an understanding that labor movements and political parties have a common struggle. At that particular point would be a colonial regime that would have been unfriendly not only to workers but to society in general. Did that level of relationship yield the necessary results?
Yes, before 1994, indeed, with all this dispensation that we achieved, the labor laws, your basic conditions of employment, and also your Mine Health and Safety Act, your Labor Relations Act, and so many other laws that we have achieved. But then after then, those laws, they are becoming redundant. They are no longer responsive to the current global economic challenges that are facing the world. So hence, they need to be looked at. Many of them need to be amended. But as moving forward, yes, indeed, we need to reset South Africa, of which the trade unions, under the circumstances, the challenges that we are facing are more politically than of the workplace politics. Yeah. So politicians have got more power to the workplace than the normal employer. So they are easily influenced. So hence, you find it very, the limitation of the government participating even to those that are aligned to the political parties. They don't have any influence, but the politicians have got more power at the workplace. Like, for instance, Anglo-American Platinum is retrenching over 4,000 workers. Sibanye Stillwater is retrenching 4,000 workers. Seriti is retrenching over 1,000 workers. The list is endless, but you'll never hear the government saying anything about those retrenchment. So for now, moving on, the union are on its own.
Ashley, are union rights fully protected, and how do you balance that role of aiding the national development and still being able to have that degree of representation for those who have interest in the jobs, the rank and file?
Okay, good evening to you and good evening to the viewers. Look, I agree with Comrade Mathunjwa that we can't deny that there has been a lot of changes made over a number of years since the dawn of democracy, labor laws that benefited workers. But from time to time, these laws become outdated. And we must also acknowledge that this government has done a lot to improve laws that to protect workers. But as Comrade Mathunjwa said, we find ourselves in a situation in South Africa where capital has become very powerful, and the struggle becomes more difficult for workers. And currently, I think some of the the laws in our country make it very difficult for workers, like Section 189A of the Labour Relations Act, that employers must just consult merely and then have the right to retrench. So therein lies the challenges that we need to address to ensure that it must not make it easy for employers just to retrench, because nowadays employers can retrench to make more profit. I mean, it's their right, and the laws is confirmed that therein lies the challenges for workers and trade unions. And I think working together as well is very important, as Comrade Mathunjwa said. We need to work closer as organized labor in South Africa, regardless of political affiliation, to intensify the struggles of workers in this country.
But while you're there, because of the phase 2 of this relationship where you've got some state-led projects, right, we ended up with the kind of labor laws that we have. But what do you make in an instance where you are, even in South Africa right now, there's an appeal, for example, from a government for unions to play a role in aiding national development, while your interest is the representation of those who are workers?
I think the challenge is, look, from our side, we believe in social dialogue. There is platforms created in South Africa like NEDLEG. As you know, that's the supreme dialogue institution, social dialogue institution in South Africa. And we've made many strides as workers through the NEDLEG and the parliamentary processes. So when government talk about aiding government, I think our view as Fedusa is very clear. We work with the government of the day. We are politically non-aligned. We work with the government of the day as long as that government shows commitment towards benefiting workers and treating workers and respecting their rights and improving their conditions. That is our philosophy.
Yeah. Lesiba, I mean, while all of you represented here have got great capacity to mobilize and get national attention because of strategic positions that you hold in the economy, Mathunjwa with the mining, yourself with the police, Fedusa in the transport area as well. So those are key sectors of society that when you speak, you're able to shake the country and get people to listen, right? So you've got some degree of political influence, but you fail to have parliamentary representation, and therefore you're having no effect in terms of policy formulation. How does that help you as a union?
From our side, thank you. Greetings to yourself, Butabo, your viewers at home, and my fellow panel members. And from our side, Butabo, we don't believe that we need to be represented in Parliament in order for the Labour Relations Act or the Basic Conditions of Employment Act or any other legislation that clearly governs the working conditions of our members, for those working conditions to be clearly adhered to and every piece of legislation to be adhered to. Because remember, since the establishment or the introduction of the Labour Relations Act or any other labor laws that has been introduced, we depend on them. But unfortunately, the reality is now employers don't have respect for the Labour Relations Act or for any other piece of legislation. That we can clearly see with the retrenchments that we are seeing. And as far as the law, it gives them, a leeway as well to say they can apply Section 189 and retrench workers and they can do this and that. In most cases, we find ourselves seated in arbitrations. We're seated at CCMA. We are seated going to the labor court, clearly because the employer did not comply with what they were supposed to comply with in terms of legislation. And we believe that to be alive as a trade union is quite important, and also the issue of collaboration. Now, with the trends that we are seeing coming from employers, it is about time where the trade unions need to unite. They need to collaborate. I will clearly agree with Ashley with what he said, that we need to collaborate, because if we are then working in silos, then the employers will continue to be making sure that they are taking advantage of our workers. They will continue to make sure that the workers continues to suffer. And you have seen in the public service that for a number of years, there hasn't clearly been a substantive salary increase. All we've been seeing, there's been peanuts that were placed in front of the workers. And as we know that the economy continues to have issues around it continues to improve. But at the end of the day, the wages, they continue to go down. So we need to really collaborate as trade unions. We don't necessarily need representation in parliament, but it also goes to those who are in leadership as well when it comes to the portfolios, like the ministerial portfolios and so on. Those who are heading departments, like we've used an example in the police, that we need a minister who will clearly make sure that they are fighting for the interests of the workers within the South African police services, as we know the challenges that are there, that are quite numerous within the safety and security sector.
Yeah. Dr. Mathunjwa, by way of comparative to what you are proposing and to what is currently in place, right? A study was done recently to look at the various possibilities of models that could be followed. Initially, you have a traditional client model where unions are almost like client to the state. They don't really have autonomy. And you have a situation where unions are completely divorced from the state. That in itself has got its own implication if you look at what's happening in Zimbabwe. And you have a situation in South Africa where we are maintaining a situation where there is an unhappy marriage, an uneasy alliance between some of the unions and some of the members of the state. What is the nature of that alliance that you look at today and you say, this is why this union is opting for a political party type engagement instead of going at it by itself? And what you have now chosen to do the divorce completely, where you are now going to be a party that is going to be in opposition, literally, or on the parliamentary seats if you get your way via the elections.
Referring to the new Labour Party that we formed.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed. I mean, in this parliament, firstly, we don't have the voice for the workers. All those who are there, they represent the neoliberalism. I mean, there is no voice from the left. So hence, I said in my opening, it is difficult now to deal with the employers because the very same labor laws are no longer responsive to the challenges that we are facing. So I think maybe at the end of this interview, the comrade will talk behind the curtains to see how they join the Labour Party, because it's for every union. So we indefinitely, Section 189, it undermines the rights of the workers. Section 197, I call it a modern slave trade, whereby they can sign and tomorrow you belong to a certain company without consultation or whatsoever. So therefore, indeed, we need a voice from the left. I kept on saying and openly not undermining the South African Communist Party. If the SACP was a true vanguard of the working class, not aligned with the ruling party, maybe it wouldn't be where we are. So the circumstances on the ground, it does need, you can't change any legislation if you are the trade union. And even with the NETLEC itself, with all due respect, NETLEC is toothless. All these things that are happening in this country, they pass it through NETLEC. We fought for 12,500 as a minimum wage, and they came with 27 rand, 50 cents as a minimum wage. So workers, when they call for 12,500, the same government kills 34 mine workers. So we do need a left voice that will try to protect the jobs. Look, at the public sector. They concluded an agreement, which is their constitutional right to bargain. But the very same government reneged and went to the Constitutional Court to set aside the very same agreement that was through the bargaining. So the union currently, they are getting it tough. We find ourselves in a very difficult space because the government itself is pro-neoliberal. And then secondly, or lastly, if I can say into this segment, we need to reset the country to change the political system, the electoral system. It has to change. If, for instance, we had what we call it a presidential democracy, where the parliamentary and the president is elected direct by the people, maybe we might not need to have maybe a political party coming from the left, because we'll have an opportunity, one, to call a referendum maybe after 2 years if the president, but now the current system, the president is accountable to the legislature, is accountable to their political party. So that's why we find it so difficult as the trade unions.
Back live with you tonight. The conversation is on labour issues. President of Amcu, Joseph Mathunjwa, Sapu's spokesperson, Lesiba Thobakgale, and Fedusa's General Secretary, Ashley Benjamin, joining us. Before the break, Ashley, I'm trying to get to an alternative way of influencing the politics that's beginning to emerge, right? You are calling for greater unity, therefore greater autonomy of unions outside of politics, but what you currently have is a situation where some unions are saying, well, in order to have access to policy makers, you need to seek political party alliances. What is an alternative that is beginning to emerge outside of that unity that you're calling for?
Well, very good question. I think for us as Fedusa, the solution, there's no right or wrong. I mean, if I listen to Comrade Mathunjwa, he's advocating for a workers' party. So there's no right or wrong to say workers' party is more beneficial for workers. Then if workers go to parliament, they can influence the process. Also on the other side, if we look at the alliance with Cosatu and ANC and SCCP, there's no right or wrong to say that being an alliance is right or wrong, or workers have not benefited from it. From our side, our experiences in the labor movement is that we've worked with all formations, with labor formations, and like I said, the supreme social dialogue institution is NEDLAC, and we've made many strides over many years. And I agree with Comrade Mathunjwa, it was not always rosy. We had some wins, we had some victories through the NEDLAC processes, but we also had some setbacks. But I think we need a broader debate in the country as the labor formations. What vehicle do we use as workers to advance our cause and champion our struggles without necessarily giving it a name or linking it to any political party? I think we've also learned from lessons where some internationally about trade unions forming political parties in Poland in particular, and we've seen what happened to those when they're in parliament, when they empower, how they change against workers in it. So yeah, I think we are in a unique situation in South Africa especially, and we become so fragmented as well. So we need come together of the minds of the federations and independent unions and federations, sort of a CODESA amongst organized labor, and start to have frank and serious discussions of how do we, as labor formations, take up these challenges that workers, and it's right. I mean, the trade union movement has been weakened over a number of years for various reasons. So we need to find that space that we can frankly talk to each other. And sometimes we talk at the wrong time. That does not augment serious discussions about the way forward. So I think it's a matter of timing. It's a matter of how do we sit around the table and work out of modalities, how we engage each other in going forward.
So one of those ways that they say the labor movement has been weakened is the informalization of labor in the country, which means a large number of folks are ununionized. So they are outside of that. So trade unions are only representing a proportion of the labor force. Hence, it makes it, I suppose, difficult for labor movements to have as much force and pull when it comes to the parliamentary processes to garner enough seats as political parties would do.
Well, I think we've seen what happened in the past, that although there is labor laws, but there's still exploitation, still workers don't get what they deserve, and the protection under our laws, which has been amended to ensure workers' rights. So I think not going to parliament is not necessarily the answer in fixing those challenges. We need to find those the right ways to deal with workers' challenge. But we agree that the labor density in the labor movement in South Africa has decreased over a number of years for various reasons that you mentioned, like precarious working conditions, casualization. And there's been new labor laws that's been amended through the NEDLEC processes, which we've seen the protection for workers, but still there are employers that is not respecting those rights. So yes, there are challenges, and we need to find, the right way to ensure that we defend the gains that we've made in protecting workers in our country.
Yeah. Lesiba, developing autonomy, right, has got to do with developing a social agenda outside and beyond your own internal political struggles in the party. We want this for police, we want special units, we want that, and we want that, in order for you to get greater support. And if Sapu is not having that social agenda, it seems it becomes difficult for it to grow just beyond the space where they are.
Gustavo, as we speak of today, we have since started a collaboration that was publicly seen, where we collaborated with a trade union like NUMSA, where we were celebrating the May Day together in Durban, and there are other collaboration that we have been doing. I mean, we have been to Brazil for the rest of April, where a delegation was sent there to really go and learn even more, because of we have since embarked on collaboration. So we are not just on our own. That is why we are saying that collaboration is quite more important. But the tactic that the employers are using, they are using the divide and rule. And that is clearly being seen in the public service, clearly, when it comes to the conclusion of agreements. Because then if a specific trade union, then they happen to be aligned to a specific political party, then it becomes easier for politicians to dictate certain things to them. And now it comes up to see what is the sole existence of trade unions. It's clearly to care about the interests of the workers. And the interests of the workers, it will go about the working conditions. It will go clearly about the issues of the conditions of service as well, salaries, and even other benefits. So when we look at what is really at the gist of the main existence of trade unions, clearly, if we go back to that, it will really show us that then we'll have to fight for what is best, what is the best interest of the workers. And by so doing, that we can only be able to achieve it broadly if all the trade unions now, we are all focusing on what are the issues of the workers. Even though maybe we may be having like our collaboration with NUMSA, they are in the metal industry. Ourselves, we are in the safety and security sector. And through that collaboration, because at the end of the day, we are collaborating on issues of the workers. So the divide and rule, that is what we need to fight against, and say that no matter what you are standing for as a trade union, no matter what is it that, your political affiliation, but when it comes to the issues of the workers, let us all have one mind and say that these are the best interests of the workers. What are the things that we can clearly do to make sure that we are fighting for what is best for the workers? And by so doing, then government or even employers would not find it so easy for them to come and break, any collaboration that we will be having or any unity that we are having. Yeah. So it is not like us as Sapu not falling under any federation or not being aligned to any political party as if we are in the court. No, we are not in the court, and we are just saying, even the panel members who are with us here, to say that we want to reiterate the issue of collaboration. We are prepared to collaborate with anyone as long as we are fighting for the best interests of the workers.
That Mathunjwa, it seems labor movements are suffering the same fate as political parties, where you are seeing a plurality of unions, or what Ashley calls fragmentation. Now, in the world of parties wanting to go to parliament, they say, no, it's a good thing. We must have a plurality of voices. Are you saying when it comes to labor issues, it's not necessarily a good thing?
When it comes to
labor movements, to have fragmentation, to have a plurality of unions?
Somehow it does not work, because the power itself, you don't have a real power if we are fragmented. But above that, what is our current challenges as we face as the labor movement? One, casualization of jobs, retrenchment, and you cannot keep on going on strike. Even the law or the labor laws, they do allow you. I mean, like for instance, to get the workers, in particular in the mining, platinum, gold, where they are, it had to take us 4-month strike, 5-month strike. But if the laws of the country or the systems that is not a neoliberal system will have laws that regulate and are applicable. But currently what we are saying, that's why there's this fragmentation of the trade unions amongst us, because we are no longer responsive. And if no matter you can go on strike, the labor relations will say, okay, you've got a lockout there, the company can lock you out, can bring the escape labor in. Then it defeats the whole purpose. So I still believe that we as trade unions, as labor movement, we need to have a voice in the parliament. Currently, because the current system, it only favors the white monopoly capital. It's a neoliberal economic policies of which you cannot fight as a trade union alone. So hence we are saying we need to have a left voice that will protect the rights of the workers and also for job creation. The companies currently, what they do, they mothball the shaft or the workplace, say they are not making super profit. And you can't do anything. So we've been calling to the government to say, government, if any mine is mothballed, take the license back and give it to Mr. Mkhize or Mr. Mkwena to continue, because those people are not for for super profit. Why should we, trade union members, suffer unemployment self-inflicted by the white monopoly capital of which they are seeking for super profit, instead, because the government is a custodian, is a regulator, take the license, give it to other people who can work. Why should we be sabotaged by foreign directives in the expense of the livelihoods of the South Africans? Yeah. So the fragmentation, that is what's caused, because others will say, let's form a union, maybe they will work better than the previous union, only to find it cannot. Hence, I'm saying even today, if it wasn't Amcu who took a 5-month strike, those workers today will be earning about 7,000 in 2024. But go to the platinum, our 5-month strike, today the workers' basic salary is not less than 15,000 rand. So imagine if those workers were still belonging to the previous trade union, where they were using a CPI, as an increment, those workers will be languishing, at about 6,000, 7,000. So we need a voice that will protect and also protect the rights of the workers within the legislation.
Is that voice a voice that is going to ignore market regulation? What is going to be a relationship of that voice to market regulation?
One, it will protect the sovereignty in terms of the minerals of this country. That this mineral endowment that we have. We need to change the issue of exporting the jobs through raw material. We need to put a quota system where we will say 60% you can export, but 40% must remain for industrialization and beneficiation. There are so many opportunities. And again, this free market of some sort that we're gonna import each and everything that we wear. We eat what we don't manufacture. We wear what we are, we are not manufacturing. Everything that we use here in South Africa, 99% all are imports. If you look at your R21, your mid-range, you see the big buildings where they stock materials that are import. We're not manufacturing anything. We see a big warehouses where they import stuff instead of manufacturing things within the country, where we'll have I mean, lots of jobs created. But because we've got a neoliberal economic policies that believes in this free market, everything in South Africa is import. I won't be surprised even maybe the flag of South Africa is import from China.
Ashley, let's bring you in here as we wrap up. I mean, listening to Mathunjwa, and I'm thinking, if there is this alliance that is in an unhappy marriage, pushing these neoliberal policies, what is preventing those who are on the left from coming up with an alternative alliance that will also be in opposition?
Yeah, let me first start with the discussion about forming political parties and workers contesting political power. Now, I'm not saying what Amcu has done to register political party and contesting elections is wrong or right. All I'm saying is that we've been there in the past. There's not the first time where unions have tried to contest power. It happened in the previous elections, 2019, and the election before. And clearly workers have rejected that political party or workers' party. So we need to analyze then why have workers rejected a workers' party or a party aligned to trade unions. And therein lies the broader discussion, as what Comrade Mathunjwa said. He raised a number of pertinent issues that, yes, we must confront. The issue of beneficiation is 100% correct. We cannot become or stay a nation of mining minerals and exporting rocks, as we call it. We cannot export rocks forever. We need to beneficiate so that we can make those products in South Africa and then export it as products with value, high-end value that can create a lot of jobs and economic development in the country. So the question is, do we need that through the ballot box by forming a workers' party or individual workers' parties? What is the best solutions for workers in this country going forward? Unity, getting their voice heard in parliament, changing the political or the economic direction of government is taking. That requires a serious debate, and unfortunately, it won't happen overnight. But I think we have the comfort to say that we have been collaborating in the past on a number of issues as the labor movement, regardless of our affiliation or non-affiliation. So I think we should continue the dialogue as labor, as organized labor in South Africa, and see how we best can structure ourselves so that we can adequately defend the gains and also the losses that we have experienced with job losses and other challenges as workers in South Africa.
Lesiba, as we wrap up, what do you see as the role that will be played by trade unions going forward in a modern economy?
Butabo, Karl Marx said, as I quote, he said that workers of the world must unite. You've got nothing to lose but your chains. We believe, and we still reiterate the same point, that the workers of the world, they need to unite. It is the role of us as trade unions to make sure that the workers of the world unite, starting from our country as well, before we go internationally, to make sure that even those workers that are not unionized, because the moment we have them unionized, then we are able to even grow our muscle. We are able to have influence over our workers. But also, it is also important to also remember that each and every worker has their own right to, to exercise their own political freedom anyhow that they wish to do so. And in us to make sure that the interests of the workers are being fought for, we need to make sure that we continue to put pressure on employers, because now we are going into the public service. We'll be going to the wage negotiations for the next year, and it is an election year. We know we've got challenges about the issues of police killings in this country, which are not being addressed, as we've been calling for it to be declared treason, and we haven't seen anything forthcoming. So we are saying that moving forward, unions need to continue. We need to continue to make sure that we exert pressure from all directions towards the employers and even towards government. At the end of the day, if we don't do that, then it means that we would have failed in uniting the workers of the world.
Lesiba Thobakgale, representing Sapu there, speaking on behalf of Sapu, and Joseph Mathunjwa, president of Amcu, Ashley Benjamin with Fedusa, Secretary General. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming on this evening.